Good evening, everyone. My name is Reverend Dr. Hugh Marriott. I'm the pastor of the Allen Temple AME Church located in the great city of Mount Vernon, New York. And it is indeed my honor and privilege to have this opportunity for us to talk and to discuss the upcoming elections. Mount Vernon, of course, is an amazing city with amazing people. And I think it is a wonderful, wonderful opportunity that we give to each other to be able to have robust debate. The purpose for tonight's session is to talk about the scorecard that was developed by Mr. Chris McDonough, who is here with us tonight. Mr. McDonough has developed a unique scorecard, which, by the way, is, I say unique, because it's not something that we see in other municipalities. And one of the things that I love about Mount Vernon is that we're really always very, very creative. And so what we would want to do tonight is to have an opportunity to have Mr. McDonough talk about his scorecard, but also to be able to give all those candidates who are interested in the vacancies, whether in our city council or even the controller's office, to have an opportunity to challenge, to debate, to discuss the scorecard. Now, just to be clear, the purpose for tonight is not to debate or discuss issues, right? That's for another forum. Tonight, we're going to be talking about Mr. McDonough's scorecard, and every person who is a candidate will have the opportunity to be able to question him and let him defend his rationale for the scorecard. So with that, I'll turn it over now to Mr. McDonough, who will introduce himself, and I'll serve as the moderator. And just that's exactly what it means. I will be moderator, not goalie or defender or anything else, just a moderator. So Mr. McDonough, you have the floor, sir.
Would the host enable screen sharing for me, please? Just so I can put some talking points up. I'm used to doing things that way, so I just need the host to allow me to do it. It's okay if you can't do it, I'll just talk anyway. But it might be easier to have
you got it,
a guide up.
Chris, you got it.
I got it? Okay,
Yep.
Great. I'm going to share a second screen. I apologize if you see me looking off to the side. That's just because I'm looking to another screen. I usually use two screens because it allows me to ruin my eyes twice as fast. Okay, can everyone see that?
Yeah. Yes, you're good, Chris.
All right. So, I want to give a little bit of background on how I came to this because it was completely organic. I had no plan to do this. It just sort of, I think it was actually a February snowstorm where I had a couple days and I decided to start, looking at things more deeply. So some people have asked who I am. I'm really nobody. I'm just a guy who lives in Mount Vernon, who had a couple days and started looking more deeply. I do have some analytical skills that I'm able to bring to bear problems. And so I did that, but I see myself as kind of anybody who lives in Mount Vernon, and just I have a particular approach to doing things. I also think that it kind of doesn't matter who I am. It's really, for me, it's really about the ideas. If the ideas and the variables that I'm looking at in my decision-making process are valid, then who I am really shouldn't enter the equation too much. But I understand there's some curiosity. If you go to the little site I put up, mountvernoncitizen.org, I put a little about me up there so people can take a look at it. But I'm just kind of an average guy who lives in the city and cares about the city. And I'll just start by saying that I wouldn't have been doing, and I'm not doing the things that I'm doing if I didn't care. And I wasn't optimistic. It may not seem that way, but that's my perspective on optimism, is to look closely at what's going on and try and come up with some better ways, or maybe helpful ways to do things. So that's who I am. How did we get here? I just want to quickly walk you through the steps, and then we'll put the scorecard up and we can have an open forum about that. Just a little timeline so everyone knows. Back in February, there was a snowstorm, And so I decided to look at the budget. It was right around the time it was passed. I think when I first started looking at it, it was still in the preliminary budget stage, but in that, it took me about a week or so to take the budget document from a PDF file, convert it to Excel, and then I just ran some formulas on it to satisfy my own curiosity about it. And I decided to, on February 28th, maybe I don't know, a week later, once I had done it, I'm like, let me put this up for other people to see. So I just set up MountVernonCitizen.org, and if you look at it, it's bare bones. It's just a place where I've been putting files, documents that I create. So that was done on February 28th. March 18th, I posted a document called, I think it was a candidate commitment signature page is what I called it, kind of a mouthful. And again, that was just from looking at the budget, and I'm not a disengaged citizen. I'm engaged. I'm aware of things that are going on. I read broadly about things, and I look at things, but not at this level. I created this document in anticipation of people coming out, possibly, I didn't know if anybody would, seeking my signature on a petition, which is part of the process of getting onto the ballot. My why in particular had to do with something that's called ethical drift. And I won't get too technical about things here. My background is in behavior analysis, which is sort of like the machine code that underlies a lot of learning that people do in a wide variety of areas. So ethical drift is this sort of idea that how the environment, cultures, can take otherwise people who are committed to a set of principles and slowly have them drift away from those principles due to circumstances. We ask a lot of people in government who have great responsibility over a lot of things that are important to us, including a lot of money. And I think it's rare that you have like the Bernie Madoff, that guy who was just in the news. These big ticket, massive corruption schemes are fairly rare. And if you follow the threads, they usually start with something very small. So it's a drift away from your better self, I think, that happens. I don't think anybody goes into it. So for me, I was interested in what can we do about this very human thing that happens, right? It's not that people are inherently bad. It's just when you put people in these situations, how do we help them? So for me, I look to research. That's sort of my background. So I do that. I'll just show you a couple of books that were important to me as I formulated this idea, as it germinated to have this signature page. And I encourage everybody to go and look at these guys. Dan Ariely is a researcher at Duke who studies cheating. He studies corruption. That's his research focus. And he does incredibly elegant studies on this. I would encourage you to go to his website. Go to, it's danariely.com or whatever. You can go and read a lot of his studies. He posts them there. You can go look him up on YouTube and find a TED Talk. Really fascinating researcher. He was influential. I read that book, I don't know when that came out, a long time ago, but that helped me formulate my idea of how do we help otherwise good people, good principled people who are put in difficult situations, hew closely to their principles, not drift away from them. The other one is the Checklist Manifesto, another dynamite book, a little bit different in that Atul Gawande is a physician, and what he's trying to do is leverage this notion of a simple behavioral checklist. It seems very, very silly and tiny of making lists and checking those things frequently to help us adhere to standards. This has certainly become more prevalent during the pandemic, as we're all surrounded by little checklists to help us adhere to health standards. So I would encourage people to take a look at the Checklist Manifesto. I certainly think people in government should read that book. I won't dwell too much on it, but those were the things when I was looking at how do we focus on ethical drift. These were the two of the things that I thought of, these two books. So I created this candidate commitment signature page, put it up on Mount Vernon Citizen.org, put it up on I think on Nextdoor. And I created just a little Facebook group. I don't have, I'm not originally from Mount Vernon. I've been here for 10 years. I'm originally from Long Island. So my friends on Facebook are overwhelmingly just people from Long Island. We share pictures of cats and foods and stuff like that. We talk a little bit, but I set up the Facebook group just so I could say, hey, I'm putting this up on Mount Vernon Citizen. My first contact with a candidate was Derrickson Lawrence on March 20th. I was actually on my way out with my wife Saturday afternoon, and he came by looking for people to sign his petition. And I thought, isn't this fantastic? Just hold on, let me run in and get my candidate signature page. And I was aware of Derrickson through tracking the Charter Commission revision effort that a lot of our residents and Derrickson was a big part of that and leading that. So lo and behold, he saw it and he was willing to sign it. I was just a quick aside, I was very excited about that. I was kind of giddy. I was like, wow, someone actually appeared to sign, came to get me to sign their petition. And here I have this signature page and he was willing to sign it. So everyone knows I immediately made a donation to Derrickson's campaign. Subsequently, at that time, of course, I had no idea I was going to make a scorecard. As I got more involved and I knew this was going to be happening, I made the same contribution to all candidates. So I did that just sort of to be equal about it. I didn't know, I was really just excited that someone was interested. And so I said, yeah, I'll donate to you. Never donated to anybody for a political campaign in my entire life. So now I've donated to, I don't know, like 12. And if anyone's listening, if I happen to miss you, there are a few candidates that I think don't have a donation page set up or are self-financing. But if there's someone who is seeking a donation and they're running and I did not make the donation, please just shoot me an email. I will be sure to rectify that because I do want to do that. So that was on March 20th. The next day I heard from Nicole Lucio. I think either someone who works with her or a friend saw what I had posted on Nextdoor and reached out to me and said, hey, Nicole would like to talk to you about this. And so then I spoke with her. When you look at the scorecard, you'll see I have more of a lengthy narrative on Nicole's. And that was largely because I think that was the moment where I started to germinate the idea of a scorecard. I didn't have it fully formulated, but in that conversation with Nicole, she had called me up about the candidate campaign, the signature document, and she had questions about the principles that I had outlined in there. And one of the principles, she wasn't entirely comfortable with the wording. And so we talked about it for about 15 minutes. And ultimately, she didn't sign it. But I walked away from the conversation thinking and talking with my wife about how I deeply admired the whole exchange because I thought that she adhered to her principles and she articulated to me why. It would have been politically expedient for her to just sign it, but she didn't. And that's sort of one of the things I look at when I put the scorecard up was principles versus politics. And looking back, I've been trying to figure out when did I actually think about putting this into this sort of scorecard format. And I think it was around there where I started thinking about it. I didn't really put things together until a little bit later. And then on March 31st, I put this scorecard out. And I think that's pretty much where we are. I put this out. What I'll do is I'm going to put the scorecard up just briefly. I don't know if you guys want me to keep it up. We don't have to. If everyone's familiar with it.
Yeah, Chris, this is the moderator. Yeah, we would probably like you to keep the scorecard up. And again, we do have quite a few of the candidates that are on here with us. So we do want to give them an opportunity to be able to really, ask you some questions. So if you are able to kind of give us a real, brief orientation, get us acclimated to the card, and then we can all dive into the questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
We are closing this Zoom link at exactly 8 o'clock.
Okay. Yeah. So very briefly, there was an earlier iteration I had set it up so that I would, as I developed this, that I would do 3 rankings as we move closer to the vote in June. And so, this is just, I want to be clear. This is my expression of my principles. My idea was that, it would be an orienting document for potentially for other citizens, which is why I put it out there. I was sort of saying, hey, this is how I do it. I don't know how you do it, but, take a look. I mean, if it's of use to you, play around with it. You obviously, you can see I weighted things one way. You can weight them however you want. I did put in my detailed scores. I tried to show up the process by which I came up with my preliminary scores. Remember, it's not exhaustive. This was sort of, I put it out there to hopefully start a dialogue, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to have done that. In case anyone's looked, the original one had these 8 categories. For city council candidates, I added a additional category for policy, which I think is very important, and beliefs. Goals and beliefs are important. And for the comptroller one, I added a personnel management philosophy, which I think is going to be important. And in my definitions, which are posted up on that site, I gave my explanation. Now, obviously, I just want to be clear again. This is I created all this, and all the other documents on Mount Vernon Citizen are an effort to try and look at public records, as best I can to inform my perspective and my decision-making process. That's the way I approach things. And just one quick last point about meeting with me. I think it was Lauren in the blurb leading up to this made the point like that I should have met with everybody. And I just want to say that I met with nobody before this. Derrickson came by, I signed his petition, I spoke with Nicole. But remember, when I did that, I had no idea this was going to be up there. And people, I'm willing to talk with anybody, but I set ground rules. And one is, please don't talk to me about information that's not public. I want to only hear about things that are public. And number 2, it's very unlikely someone will persuade me just through political rhetoric. My point, the takeaway with that is that if you go back in the cycles, most candidates say more or less the same thing every cycle to secure your vote. They think if they can say the right words in the right order in the right way at the right time, that you pull the lever for them. I don't find that compelling evidence. I like to read documents, and I like to see candidates in difficult positions. Being teed up to sell me something is sort of like, I don't go to shop for a car and listen to the salesman. I go to Consumer Reports. That's how I make decisions. And I'll leave it there because I know we're pressed for time. So thank you for letting me give that intro. And I look forward to taking notes on what you guys have to say about it.
All right. So why don't you bring up we'll start from the actual scoring of the candidates that has been published, I think, March 31st. If you can.
Oh, you want to see the one that with my actual scores? Oh, there you go.
With your bias scores, with your, as you called it. And because this was what you made public. And I think this is what generated some of the interest and even why we're having this conversation now. And I will be honest, for all the candidates, I saw the scorecard and I thought I was fascinated and I was intrigued by it. And so obviously all the questions are, how do you give candidates an opportunity to debate and discuss and to challenge you? And that's, I think, is what we're hoping that you are prepared to do tonight. So if you, again, everyone can see the score, you want to maybe just talk a little bit about, just this score, and then we'll open it up for the candidates. And again, we appreciate all those who are not running, who are joining and witnessing this, but we really would like the candidates to have the opportunity to really ask any question. And again, we have no skin in this game. And so therefore, I think the opportunity here is for us to be able to have some kind of robust discussion as we consider the candidates for these very important offices. So Chris, just talk about this quickly, and then we'll open up for the candidates.
Okay,
we
thank
want
you,
to
Dr.
allocate as much time for them as possible.
Absolutely. Yeah, so the individual, I built this in Excel, and I, the individual scorecards for each candidate, you can go and see how I populated them. Those feed into these ranks, so you can see there's a raw score, and I think in the March 31st document, you can see the total points were 45. So it's just straight up math. You get the total raw score and the total score, and you get a percentage. That's how it came up with the information that I had looked at, at the time. Obviously, I'm not making the argument that it's complete, and obviously some variables are completely individual. For example, how do you rate someone's temperament right now? That's a perfect personal preference. The way I see something that's favorable, someone else might find that to be unfavorable. So, you said it best, Dr. Marriott, when this is definitely reflects my individual voter biases. I have heard from a couple of candidates have reached out to me and said, hey, I think you might have misjudged this particular variable on me. I welcome that. I think that's great. But as I said earlier, if the goal is to meet with me to make just a verbal pitch to me about why I should rank that more favorably, that's not likely to persuade me. What I would look for is say, point me to things in the public record that I can review to inform my objective view on it. That takes the emotionality of someone selling me something. And I think that has led us astray. I think it's in politics in general, it's led us astray. So is that sufficient? I don't know if that's enough. You tell me.
That's good. I think that's good. So my hope is that most of the candidates, if not all of them, had a chance to even see the granularity of some of what fed into this particular summary model. So I think we'll open it up now for the candidates to just ask their questions, and we'll take it from there. So who wants to? I know that from what I can tell, Nicole is here, Gregory, Andre, Lauren, Janice, Derrickson, and Darren are here. I don't know of anyone else. I'd have to look through, but the floor is yours, candidates. What would you want to ask? What would you want to know? This is the time and this is the forum. Yes, Nicole.
Can't see anybody.
I see Nicole's hand.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. If you could actually put up the details, not of my particular grading, but just the different categories, so that I can maybe ask a question about the actual category.
Maybe that would be the description page.
Yeah.
Are you talking about the detailed descriptions?
Correct.
Who's controlling the screen?
I'll give that to her. I'll get that to her.
Okay, thank you. So I guess my question was, in terms of continuing to engage you, what is it that you're going to be looking for? I know that in terms for the next scoring cycle, there are a few forums that are going to that are coming up. So I imagine you would be present or either watching those on the record. Some of us do have a personal campaign website. So I imagine that you may be doing some research and viewing our website. And so, let's see, thank you.
Oh, it's up, right? Can you see?
I see it.
Okay.
Right. So how, are we to engage with you so that you can, gain a perspective or even a better perspective? I mean, I was happy to be introduced to you and have that phone call, but going forward.
Yeah, I guess a couple things. Yes, to the early ones. I have looked at campaign websites to try and get a better detailed understanding of people's beliefs and policy positions. and some offer more and some offer less. So I am looking at that. I will certainly do my best to attend, hopefully in person if we're capable, but if not, through Zoom forums of candidates debating or presenting. I try to. I also appreciate people sending me things. If someone if you send me something and say, hey, you know, here's an op-ed I just wrote, or you know, here's a paper I wrote. I mean, that's kind of what I look for. I'm looking for kind of heavy details. You know, I think that's important. Now I know it's a difficult thing because it's a double-edged sword. So I think you know, Dr. Morton is in a tough spot because there's a lot of information that he's been involved with a lot of stuff. So, you know, that makes it easier for him to be sort of under a microscope. So, but on the other hand, if someone has no information, if I can't find anything to rate them, then that, you know, that I'm not going to rate them. There were a couple of candidates where I really couldn't find any meaningful information. So I didn't want to, you know, I didn't say anything at all. I didn't feel comfortable doing anything. But, you know, the third way, Nicole, is I want to just emphasize I'm just one person. That's all. I'm just one guy. So I think communicating with me, I think would be you communicate the same way you communicate with anybody else who lives in the city who has a vote. You know, so that's kind of my thinking about that. I hope that helps.
Yes,
I'm doing my best.
Wonderful. Andre, and then we'll go to Lauren. Andre Wallace.
Yes, go ahead, Andre.
Yeah, I'm unmuted now. Can you hear me?
Yes, Andre, I can hear you now.
Okay. My question was just I couldn't understand what they meant by points was taking off for being on the Democratic Party or being part of the Democratic Committee's choice. So could you speak to that a little bit on how those points were taken off, and how did you come up with that theory? And what does that mean to you?
Yeah, I appreciate that question.
And the reason why I'm asking that is because this is the first time I actually got the Democratic nomination. And then the first time I've ever got it, somebody said, all right, I'm taking points off you. I don't like you no more. You know, so that's why it's just interesting.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question. And I think it drives home the point that this document, the way it's set up, and is my screen still being shared so you can see?
Yes, I can put it up for you. Yes, Chris.
Yeah, as long as everyone is aware of what we're talking about, it doesn't really matter. Yeah, just the blank one is good, where it shows my deductions and bonuses, which is probably maybe the second page is a blank page.
The second page, all right.
Yeah, the second page is the blank page, or after the definitions. I'm sorry. There you go. There you go. So, you know, it's a perfect example of how this reflects my own biases. You know, that is the deduction for being endorsed by the party reflects my judgment, as I think I explained in the definitions. You know, my current, well, number one, I'm not one who really is big into party politics. I'm a registered Democrat, and the values, the progressive values, are ones that I identify with. I have little interest in parties per se, and my sense is that the machine politics in New York, historically, Republicans, for example, in Nassau County, or Democrats more broadly, have not served the interests of voters well. And my sense of the local Democratic Party in Westchester County, you know, and more specifically here in Mount Vernon, that it hasn't served the interests of the voters very well. And again, I emphasize those are my biases. However, I'm certainly willing to defend my biases. I wouldn't be here right now if I didn't think I was capable of articulately defending my beliefs about these things. So that answers your question. You know, I apologize to you, Mr. Wallace. I do, that you got hit in that. But I guess what I would like to see is someone say, you know what, I understand that the Democratic Party wants to offer me that, but I'm not interested in doing it. I think what we need to do is sort of step away from a narrow group of people selecting who will and will not be elected to office to represent us. So that's the Democratic Party endorsement one. I won't go into the other ones unless people ask, just so that other people can get an opportunity to ask me questions.
All right. So we'll have
Okay.
we'll have Lauren and then Janice.
Thank you very much, Reverend Marriott. I apologize, Reverend Marriott, for moderating this today, and Mr. McDonough for explaining the scorecard. And I apologize beforehand, but I'm going to have to exit the meeting as soon as I ask my question or make my statement, because I had a commitment. I have a longstanding commitment on Friday evenings. But I wanted to ask the question with regard to the scorecard and temperament. Again, I don't know how you can judge someone based on temperament when you don't know them and/or you have not witnessed them in certain situations. I did not speak with you, as you indicated, but I do know that there are records of me at council meetings and board of estimate and contract meetings where I'm always able to compose myself despite what was occurring in the meetings. I don't know how you ranked me there in your scorecard, but it's just interesting to see your rankings and then to fully understand how you came up with the scores when you really don't know the candidates or you have not really seen them in action. And I just want to piggyback off of Andre Wallace's comment regarding the Democrat Party's endorsement. I've been endorsed by the Democrat Party. I've been endorsed by the Working Families Party. I've been endorsed by former council people as well. But every person that's running for council or controller, with the exception of one person running for county legislator, sought the endorsement of the Democrat Party. And it's not saying, the endorsement is not saying that other people don't have a right to vote for who they want to vote for. It's just that the district leaders are saying, these are the people that we want to nominate because we believe that these are the ones that can best represent the party. But it does not mean that the voters don't have a say, hence the reason why we're going to have a Democrat primary. But I just wanted to bring that to your attention because everyone that's on this call today sought the nomination of the Democrat Party.
Okay, thank you for that. First, I'll speak to the temperament variable. So what I tried to do is I looked. I have seen you, and my judgment was I judged your temperament favorably. As I said, this document reflects my biases. As far as temperament, I was thinking about that. Just think about it more generally. It is a very subjective variable right now, although we could make it more objective as a society if we wanted to. We could start to analyze what are the most favorable temperaments to have for someone who's put in a position such as the position that you're seeking. I think I defined what I was looking for, what the things that I think are favorable, and really it's a high level of emotional control, and that's not arbitrary. That's because what happens when someone becomes emotional is it competes with your ability to remain reasonable. If you get too emotional, what kicks in is your flight or fight response, and then when that happens, you're more likely to do or say things that are irrational or against your better judgment. So, it's not, I didn't invent this whole cloth and I didn't make it up. I did observe you. And for example, right now, I'm observing you speak. As far as how you interact with somebody one-on-one, that's part of it. But how, I want to see how you interact broadly, in a variety of situations. Most importantly will be when you're put in, a situation where it might be adversarial. So for example, journalism at its best, and I guess I'm not a journalist, but I think it's at its best when it's somewhat adversarial with politicians. A lot of times the game has evolved where politicians won't put themselves at risk with a journalist who might ask them something that would make them uncomfortable. That I think does a disservice to the voting public. I think it's important to observe how candidates react in a variety of situations. As far as your point about the Democratic Party endorsement, again, it reflects my bias. I understand what you're saying, that what it is it's what the district leaders are saying. It's what the district leaders are endorsing. And what I'm saying is I don't respect the judgment of the district leaders. I'm sorry, but I don't think that they have done anything that compels me to think that their judgment is superior to my judgment when it comes to discerning what candidate can represent me the best. So again, it reflects my bias. That's the best I can do for you.
Appreciate that, Chris. And we do want to kind of move forward. So we've got Janice and then Marcus, who has a question after Janice.
Thank you so much, Reverend Marriott, for hosting this tonight. Thank you, Chris McDonough, for being willing to come out and discuss and share your views. And I do appreciate this open conversation with everyone. And thank you to everyone who's participating, because it's the dialogue that really helps us advance and progress, regardless of our differences or agreements. So I just want to, not to beat a dead horse, because it's already been made, the comment has been made twice with regards to the Democratic Party endorsement, and I completely understand Mr. McDonough's position. However, I still feel that it's unfair to discount someone for getting the endorsement. As Ms. Carter stated, every single candidate on your scorecard did seek the endorsement. So regardless of whether you won the endorsement or not, at the end of the day, the voters still have to vote for you, right? And we've seen many examples where the endorsement did not win you the election. And so that's just my thoughts, that it's unfair to discount someone for having achieved the endorsement or even sought it. With regards to being a current elected official, I'd like to hear your thoughts on why that's a discount on someone's score.
Okay. Thanks for the questions. Regarding the first one with the endorsement, I think that if there are other residents watching this and they think, wow, what Janice Duarte just said makes sense, and they think that this scorecard is a reasonable framework through which they can formulate a decision, then there's nothing stopping them from changing that. I posted it up there. I don't know what you guys noticed. I put it up in Excel. There's a DIY setup where you can go in and you can put in whatever you want. If you want to say, hey, I think that being endorsed by the Democratic leaders is a positive, then someone should go in there and instead of deducting points, they should make it a bonus. So again, this reflects my personal opinions. I put up on Mount Vernon Citizen a DIY Excel file where any citizen who's interested can say, let me go in and rank the candidates according to what I believe, how I see things. What I'm trying to do is just to bring a little bit more focus on, again, what I believe are important variables. Now, the other thing regarding the endorsement, as far as I know, there's nothing stopping you from saying, you could say it right now to the Democratic leaders, thanks, but no thanks. I appreciate you saying that you want to endorse me, but you know what? I'd rather not accept your endorsement. As far as I know, you could do that if you wanted. And if you did that, I would be like, wow, I'm going to take that 2-point deduction off because that aligns more with my belief system. So that's my perspective on that. Was there another question? I don't know if there was another part.
Well,
It was with regards to regards to being an incumbent.
The incumbent. Yeah, sure. So again, I think in the definitions, you can. I tried to give what I would call an operational definition of why I'm doing what I'm doing. It's my belief that we haven't been served well from multiple election cycles by incumbents. I wish we had. And I know that right now, a lot of the focus has been on what's happening with the controller, the current controller, but our issues in the city did not start with the current controller. So it's been many cycles of problems. And a difficult time, a lot of opacity around the finances. And I hold elected officials accountable for that. So if you're a current elected official and you're running to seek re-election, I deducted points. Again, that's my view on things. Someone else might be like, wow, I like incumbents and I want to turn that into a bonus. They can go and get the Excel file and populate the numbers however they want, and it'll rank things differently.
All right. Thank you for that, Janice, and thank you. Marcus, who's on with us, you got a question. You got the floor. You're muted, Marcus.
Mute here. Oh, I'm unmuted. Oh, can you hear me okay?
I want to be where Marcus is.
Oh yeah, that's exactly where I am. I have some of the same questions like Janice did, but my first question is if you are a convicted criminal, why would you not just be eliminated rather than get a high deduction? I would think that if you're a criminal, you would just be completely eliminated from your list. That's one. And two, it should be noted that even though normally I ask for the Democratic endorsement, this time I did not seek the Democratic endorsement. I slipped out 3 seconds ahead. So in this case, it benefits me on your scorecard. And last, I may be an elected official, but I'm an elected official, but I'm not an elected official in the role that I'm looking to seek. So that also could be a change, because I feel I can't serve my public the way that I have in the past in that role. So that's why I'm looking for another role. So yes, I agree with Councilwoman Duarte that being a current elected official should not be a detriment. But I know this is your scorecard, and my name is Marcus A. Griffith, not Marcus Griffith. Please change that.
Marcus A. Griffith. Got it. Okay, thank you, Marcus A. Griffith. Yeah, so
No doubt.
regarding the conviction, the way we have things set up is that we have someone who has been, or I don't plead guilty, I suppose, who's running, and I just felt like, it's not against the law for the person to be running. They are a candidate. And so I wanted to keep them in the mix. Remember that this is a qualitative document. It appears to be quantitative because I tried to put it into a numeric format for ease of use. But that -8 for relevant criminal convictions, at this point, this is really a kind of a test document. I mean, I didn't run a quantitative analysis to see if I'm weighting variables correctly. I mean, I didn't do that, right? So maybe it should be -20. Maybe he should be. Maybe the individual who has a criminal record should be eliminated from my scoring entirely. And you know what? Again, if there are other citizens watching this and they find what you're saying persuasive, I think that's great. And I'm only one person. This is just, in a way, this is all very fascinating to me because it's sort of like making a pitch to me, but I hope it's an opportunity to pitch things to the voters. I think that's the broader audience. But I'll make sure I'll get that A on there. I apologize for that.
And if I may just say something real quick on that note for a moment. And of course, Chris has done a phenomenal job of making the point that this is his scorecard, right? And certainly every citizen in the city of Mount Vernon is capable by whatever means to determine how they're going to elect a candidate. However, one of the reasons why I chose to be a part of this and to moderate this was because for all intents and purposes, the tool has the potential to become a model that allows us as a city to be able to do something that we do not see with other municipalities, right? So there's the potential for that. And what that means is if any candidate who is really worthy of their muster decide that they want to run for an elected office, they should be able to withstand the scrutiny. They should be able to stand it. That way, when we say this candidate has been elected to the city, whatever role, then we could stand by that and support that candidate because they've been through the fire. So again, I think it has potential. I certainly plan on working with Chris more closely so that we can refine it. I have every intention of doing that. But just like the NAACP and other organizations, a lot of organizations have scorecards, right? They score businesses, they score. So the fact that the city of Mount Vernon is poised to actually take on such a monumental role with weighing our own candidates and our own people, I think is phenomenal. So I thought I would just throw that out there. But are there other questions? And I do know I want to be mindful of the time, but are there other questions from other candidates that we have not yet heard from? Do you have thoughts or comments? We would love to hear them. And this would be a really good time to put your input in because as Chris has intimated, it can impact scorecards going forward. So any other candidate? And I do see David's hand, but David's not a candidate. So we're kind of going to defer just to the candidates before we kind of, there's Derrickson. All right, Derrickson, go ahead. David, I see you, but let's get the candidates in first. Derrickson, go ahead.
Okay, I just wanted to offer my view in terms of the opportunity that this creates. And it's not just for what we're going through today. The real issue here is we have an opportunity to develop a model that works for future races. And so I thought when you look at this objectively, you would say that it's not a perfect a scorecard, and there's room for improvement. But in time, I think we'll get to that point, and I think that's the opportunity it represents. So I appreciate Chris just being upfront with how he's done this, the potential issues with it, and how he plans to go forward in terms of moderating as he, as this thing evolves. So I think it's a great start, and I appreciate everybody coming on to add their input to this.
Reverend Marriott, you got Richard Thomas on. You want to get him in? You have.
Does he have a question? Yeah.
Didn't see you raise his hand.
Yeah, I don't see his hand yet, but if he has a question, we'll certainly defer him. But Janice has her hand up, so we'll entertain her question now.
Yeah, Janice.
Okay, thank you so much. So I recognize that I have to earn the vote of every voter, and just in the same way that Mr. McDonough has taken the effort and the thoughtfulness to put this together, to formulate or at least articulate your preferences, your thoughts, your values in the context of politics and the election. I appreciate the effort. I definitely do, and I understand. I don't mind at all defending my record or making my efforts to earn your vote. With regards to being an elected, I think that having a yes or no approach to it, though, doesn't allow the individual's effort and sacrifice that they have invested in the position and in serving the public, irrespective of the big picture, the context of the entirety of the city. And as you said, the city didn't just get here overnight, and it's not because of one particular person. It is decades of issues that haven't properly been dealt with. And I think that we're just in a situation where the spotlight has been shown on the number of weaknesses that haven't been addressed over the years. And one person alone can't fix all of that either. And so and I'm speaking for myself as the only incumbent council member in this election, or at least here. There is another incumbent but did not receive the endorsement. But so there's only 2 incumbents running for re-election to city council. I decided to run because I thought I could add value, and I strongly feel that there are so many ways to improve the city. And I've been making, and I am very proud of the progress and the positive advancements that I have made, although they seem small and incremental compared to the large issues that we have. But you have to start somewhere. So I only make the, I guess, make the suggestion to you, Mr. McDonough, not to change your mind, but just as you work on this scorecard, to consider that this yes or no, either you are an incumbent or not, consider how you may be able to reflect a gradient, so to speak, to really show, as being an incumbent is not necessarily a negative. I've had these past three and a quarter years learning a lot, and capturing that knowledge and that experience can be very valuable going forward. And so I just make that suggestion to you, and I hope that that's something that you would consider.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair point. Sort of to try and figure out a way to capture, the effort, and there's certainly sacrifice, I think, in going and sustaining public service in the way that you have. And it's true that this is sort of too blunt of a tool to capture all of that nuance. I do think it's the part of the reason why I put these things almost as bonuses. There's a core card, and then there's the deductions and the bonuses. For me personally, I certainly will consider what you're saying. And I hope other voters will as well. I don't know that I could change. I'll think about if there's a way to change the tool to somehow make that more nuanced there. One of the things that I was looking for was something that's a usable device. And the thing is, if it gets too detailed, if it gets too cumbersome, then I think it starts to go off the other side and no longer becomes effective. So there's a sweet spot we have to find. I know that this is flawed. It's a sort of opening draft. So I appreciate what you're saying. Definitely, I'll try to work on it.
Now we do have time is limited, so we are going to have a question from Dr. Morton. But before his question, I want to kind of make this point, and I'm sure everyone understands it, right? But a high score is not a guarantee of success or victory, right? It is really just that, a score that's based on a number of iterations that Chris has used. So that's important to understand, right? But as we move forward and this becomes a more effective tool, then it might be possible that it could sway people's votes. So we'll see. But with that, Dr. Morton, you've got the floor, sir.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. First of all, good evening to everyone. Let me to Chris also I guess I should say thank you for being able to step out and trying to figure out how you can make a decision based upon leadership in the city, and I understand it. And so, being a somewhat, I guess, of a researcher myself, I recognize, and I think that it's important to be able to say that while, this is the scorecard is qualitative, and in this case, it's somewhat you've made it a little bit qual, right? Where you tried to take some of this quantitative stuff and try to put it into some sort of quantitative measure. I think that the challenge that the candidates are having, I think all of us would be having with this, is the same challenge that we would have with folks who start to make perspective and opinion on places like Facebook and social media and all things of that sort, right? There's always the unknown variables that are not necessarily articulated in the process of coming to conclusion, right? You've articulated that there's a positionality here that you've already taken, right? And you've called it a bias, right? It's in a research thing, somebody would say it's a positionality around what your position is and your perspective as to where you're going and kind of what you're doing. And in this qualitative kind of approach, you've really hinged upon more observation, even though, yeah, there's some pulling of data and things of that sort. And especially you named it, you know, I get the disadvantage because kind of there's some documents around some of the work that I've done and some of the things that I've been involved in, either directly or indirectly, right? So then, yeah, you get some documents where you review documents and all of that, and you take, again, an observation from that. The problem in all of it is that there is very little triangulation in this, right? Which, and for, you know, folks that don't understand that, when you're not triangulating it, it leads to a very clear bias and an unreliability, and, you know, and a validity issue. All that said, I think the underscoring here is for people to understand that it is a prospective scorecard, right? In which, you know, people can make their decision. And for this meeting, how do you try to get to eliminate some of that? You begin to eliminate some of that in any scorecard that anybody would do, right? Even like the clergy under the mayor's phrase did, you know, kind of this profile thing, right? How do you begin to kind of get to some sort of level basis? Is that you've got to figure out, well, what are really the core expertise, the core qualifications and those things, and come up with a score for that kind of evens out. Then, yeah, people can then choose what their perspective, what their perspective are, or their preferences are on that. And then you can have almost this kind of dual kind of scoring on that. That would make it a little bit more understandable for people to understand it. But at the end of the day, you know, I recognize that everybody has the right to be able to evaluate candidates the way that they want to evaluate candidates. You know, I get hit because I am got the nomination from the party. It's the first time I ever went for the nomination, first time I ever went for elected office, all of it, I get a negative on it. Okay, it is what it is, I guess, right? And I think that people need to understand where these things fall. You've been articulating it, Chris, over and over again. I just don't think that when people see the scorecard up there alone, without all of that even context around it, like, you know, when you do research, you need to be able to set it up for people that they understand, right? When I did my doctorate program, I had to tell them what my positionality was so people understand that there's some inherent bias here. I think that the more that we can make that explainable to people, if this is, you know, the route that I guess citizens are going, the better it will be for people to be able to look at it. At the end of the day, it's a scorecard, right? Yeah. Yep. At the end of the day, it's a scorecard that is really can be used, cannot be used, in whichever way people wish to kind of use it. I just think that we got to figure out how to tweak it. You got to. I'm sorry, you got to figure out. Yes, whoever's doing it, got to figure out how to tweak it in a way that it becomes a little bit more reliable if you're going to use it, and has validity to what is the end goal. Because you remember, we always got to ask what's the end goal in this of this. But I'm going to end by saying, you know, I'm appreciative of the opportunity just to be here and be a part of it.
And Chris, before you respond to that, I don't know if you need to or not, but I just wanted to just make a point that Dr. Morton, what you have articulated is precisely why I thought this forum was important, right? And we cannot discount the fact that the willingness of the city of Mount Vernon to have from within its own ranks, its own citizenry, to be taking on such a monumental task cannot be overstated. And working it and trying to figure out how to make it happen so that we have our own accountability and our own scrutiny is precisely why we want to do this. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. Now, I know the time is over, and I was told that we had to end at 8 o'clock, but I do want to just take moderator liberties and just give deference to Lauren, who I see your hand, and I know you have a burning question, and we're just going to give you the last word. And if it's something for Chris to respond to, then he can do so, and then we call it a night. But beyond that, before that, really want to thank all of the candidates who showed up tonight to even participate. This is what makes the city better, and this is where credibility comes from. So Lauren, take it away.
I know I have 6 seconds.
Yeah.
One, the pastors, with the input of the community during the last election, created a scorecard or whatever they called it, some sort of evaluation of the candidates. This was with the input of the community. This was not one single person doing it. So I make my objection to the potential. I'm not saying that what you're saying is not true, but you don't say that this is your interpretation, and it's really unfair to a lot of the candidates that are here. The ones that Pastor Richardson did about a year ago, that was more community input. They had the scorecard, people could input it. Thanks a lot. I got to get off. I know I only have 6 seconds.
All right. Chris, you can respond to that, and then we'll
All right, just two things. Just I agree with
Go
much of
on mute. I'm
what
trying to get to
Dr.
mute.
Morton said. I will just say that, I'm not, I do have credentials in this. I have a PhD from Columbia in behavior analysis. I speak the language of research quite well. So I do understand these things. Regarding what Lauren said, I don't know what you're talking about. In terms of something that you develop, that's fine. I think that's great. I think it's wrong to take a shot at a citizen who's simply trying to make a decision about who to vote for. And all I did was share a tool that I'm using to make my decisions. And you're not obliged to look at it, like it, or use it. But I think it's wrong to take a shot at me as if I've done something wrong by putting my opinion out there. So I apologize if you don't like it, but here you go.
And I think just to make sure that we end on a positive note, right? The idea here is, as we stated before, this is Chris's model, right? It's Chris's model. It is not something that the citizens of Mount Vernon are going to say, this is the rubber stamp for all the candidates. So we acknowledge that. Our only purpose here, right, is to say, okay, we've got a model that we've seen that we have not seen in terms of the analytic capability that we think has potential to do more. And so we're willing to work with all the candidates, all of the citizens, perhaps even, to some extent, the community in some way, to, as Chris has so graciously said, is willing to see if we can take it further. And again, I pledged, and I'm sure others will too, if he's open, to work with him on saying, hey, maybe we can have something that we can all stand behind, and it comes with risks. But with that, want to really thank everyone for being here tonight, for participating. I hope we can continue to have more of these kinds of dialogues around perhaps maybe even the issues themselves. But at the end of the day, we are a great city. We have great people. We're poised for great things. And once we make it through this pandemic, I personally believe you're going to see a Mount Vernon like you've never seen before. I believe it. So with that, good night, everyone. Thank you all so much. And we'll see you all. Be safe. Wear your masks.
Bye-bye. You're welcome.